Thank you. It's a pleasure to speak to you today.
In his old job.
In the public sector, we need to think differently about how we make policy and manage our institutions. As Eva said, we need to recognise the public sector often has the qualities of a complex system, not a machine. I'd argue that understanding complexity better can help us make policies better. Let me give you an example. The Olympics were held in London last year and were a major success. From a policy point of view, the Games consisted of various challenges, and the difference between these challenges is illuminating. One obvious challenge was to build the stadium. This is about producing a defined object by defined time, a hard deadline. The stadium needed to be right first time. There was little value in experimentation and adaptation in this case. And the organisers had the ability to exert a lot of control over delivery through contracts and penalties. For this kind of challenge, clear target setting and project management from the centre will be the most effective approach. On the other hand, a major goal of the Games was to regenerate an area of East London called Stratford. This is quite a different challenge. The goals are truly complex. There'll be many different views on what it actually means to regenerate the area. And government has much less direct control over how this happens. People cannot be mandated to move into an area, nor businesses to set up there. This kind of challenge is best managed by setting a high-level goal, regenerating Stratford, and creating a framework that allows adaptation and opportunism to flourish. So we have different kinds of responses according to the type of challenge. But the issue is that traditional policy making encourages you to take the stadium building approach. It encourages a linear view, where success is about policymakers identifying the best solution, which is then just implemented by others under central management. And this is problematic for two reasons. First, it may give a false impression of control. The public sector is made up of many different actors with different priorities. All the time, these actors are making decisions about how the policy is realized in practice. In the traditional view, these decisions are just about second-order issues, details. But in fact, these decisions can actually change the nature and purpose of the policy itself. So policy is not just made and then executed. It is made and then constantly remade by different actors in a system. And we need to recognize this to have the best shot at success. And second, the traditional view may neglect the best solutions. We may end up trying to regenerate Stratford the way we built its stadium. Instead, as we've heard, the best way of dealing with a complex policy issue may be to let the system actors to develop and adapt a solution. Therefore, it would be wrong to see complexity just as a problem. The complexity of a system may also be the way to generate a solution through emergence. We may talk about emergence in a second. When at the Institute for Government, I suggested that complexity thinking could be applied by taking a system stewardship approach. And system stewardship involves two main steps. First, it shows the criteria that policymakers can use to identify how complex the policy challenge is and how complex the relevant public sector system is. Are we dealing with a stadium issue or a Stratford issue? And these criteria that can be applied include whether the goal is simple and agreed or complex and contested, whether there is scope for adaptation or whether we need to deliver to a deadline, whether we can allow standards to diverge or if we're demanding uniformity, and whether actors in the system have the capacity to address challenges themselves. It goes without saying that to apply these criteria, policymakers need to understand the basics of what a complex system looks like. And again, we may talk about that issue in a second. The second step in stewardship is applying a set of principles for action. And these involve developing goals, setting the rules of the game, gaining feedback, and responding to that feedback. Now, these principles can be implemented in a performance management way, as if you were building a stadium. But I'd argue that increasingly governments build stadiums, if you like, less often than they think they do. So rather than a linear model, we should perhaps think more like this, where policymakers set high-level resilient goals rather than specific targets, where the rules they set are enabling frameworks rather than standard operating procedures, where feedback is about making sense of what is emerging from the system rather than performance monitoring, and where the response is more about steering and signaling than direct intervention. And there are signs that governments are adopting this thinking. This year, the UK government published a plan to improve policymaking skills. It focuses on open policymaking, which, it says, recognizes that policy problems are invariably multidimensional and interconnected, and they're complex to tackle in practice. And the official responsible for policymaking in each government department now has to promote these principles of open policymaking. In addition, the Behavioural Insights team where I work has been actively promoting a test, learn, adapt approach to policymaking. The goal is to spread experimentation in the public sector, particularly the use of randomized control trials. And such trials, randomized control trials, have the reputation for being complicated, expensive, and slow to give results. We've shown that they actually can be cheap, feasible, scalable, and most importantly, give fast, reliable feedback to policymakers in order to help learning. The key to making them cheap, fast, scalable, and so on is to build experimentation into existing processes wherever possible. So these ideas are starting to be applied in practice. But now we need to build on this work in order to seize the opportunities complexity thinking offers. And I hope this conference helps us to achieve this goal. Thank you very much.